Chase Thomas podcast. My nephew needs me to record. See, I already hate it. I hate it.
All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas podcast. From still the aforementioned Chase Thomas coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, Everything School HQ. Joining me from Rocky Top Insider, Latte Larry, superfan, fresh off a family reunion, Ryan Schumpert, the world traveler, is here. Ryan, good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well. Yeah, World Traveler feels a little dramatic. Drove like 100 miles to Bryson City or something like that. Beautiful drive though, going through the mountains. But no, doing well and glad to be on here talking a little ball.
How was that drive? Because I saw there was like a mudslide or rock slide on the way to Asheville. So did you have to take a weird way or no?
Yeah, I mean, I guess a little bit different than I normally would have, though it's not that much slower because it's already kind of a tricky place to get to. But as a South Knoxville resident, I just hopped on Chapman Highway and took that all the way to Gatlinburg and then probably drove 50, 60 miles through Great Smoky Mountain National Park. Beautiful drive. And kind of once I got to Cherokee, North Carolina, is kind of when things started taking a little bit different route. But
stop at Harris Cherokee Casino?
I did not. I didn't see the casino, actually, but drove right through the little downtown area. So it was it's quite the drive. Saw a bear. Saw some elk. A lot of wildlife. The bear was when I was coming back Sunday morning.
Okay.
So 8:30 maybe, early.
Okay. Early morning bear action.
Yeah. The elk were more... I saw one elk on the way back, mostly on the way there, which was like evening.
I've seen them both up close in the Smokies. A big elk is more jarring than the black bears. The black bears are... Hey, they can be units. They can be units, but most
the
are
elk
not.
Is more jarring. I agree.
Elks,
they're massive.
Elk are huge. Like you don't. Yep. You have to see them in person to understand how big an elk is. Like an elk up close is. It's a problem. An elk is a problem. Ryan Schumpert.
Granted, the bear's a problem too, but you kind of just know what a black bear is. Like what the size is. Like it's not surprising. It's what you expected. What I expected when I saw a bear. When you see an elk, it's like, holy cow, this thing is just a unit, a behemoth.
Yes. Yeah, but they're all blue chippers. Every elk is a blue chipper.
Yeah.
There are some 3-star black bears out there in the Smokies. Some 2 stars. Yeah. There's some walk-on black bears. There's no walk-on 2 stars. There's no... I'm not even going to say a name. I'm not going to even do this. But there's no 2 and 3-star elk in the Great Smoky Mountains. They're all blue chippers. All of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which naturally leads us, Ryan, because I don't even know where this is going. It's always when it's just you and I on these pods. Like, this is the most unhinged you'll ever get. Ryan Schumpert, media professional, who, by the way, changed his profile picture on X, which I was scrolling multiple times and you were breaking stuff and writing it. And I'm like, I don't know who that. I was like, is that Ryan? And it's a little jarring with someone who has I imagine if I did that after like 3 years, people would be like, who is that? And then have to stop and do a double take here. But I was like, who is that? And then Ryan was like, hey, I need people to understand I'm a serious journalist. So good picture with the notepad, ready to go, ready for an interview, ready for note taking at any given notice.
Yeah, no, shout out friend of the program, Caleb Jalros, sniped that picture of me at Tennessee basketball practice last week. Great picture. And I was overdue. It had been over 2 years, I think, since my last change to a profile picture. So,
I think it's been 2 for me too.
Yeah, so it was it was good. It was a good picture he took. So yeah, I'm locked in. That's the guy locked in watching Nate Ament and Jacoby Gillespie right there.
There you go. Well, Ryan Schumpert, you had a bone to pick. Something when you were listening to friend of the program, Caleb Giroux, on Mondays. We have to start here because I have no idea where this is going because Ryan Schumpert has a recruiting, I'm assuming football, bone to pick with, I don't know, me, Caleb, or...
you.
Oh, it's just me? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm ready. Where are we going?
Because
where are we starting here, Ryan Schumpert?
Side too. The Carson Sneed, your take on the podcast or on the show today was that Carson Sneed, it's like really important for Tennessee to hold on to Carson Sneed. Couldn't disagree more. In fact, at this point, and this is a little bit of a common man take, I will say, I'm not even sure I'm not just cutting the kid. I mean, I'm not actually cutting the kid, but this is nonsense. This kid, this low 4-star, thinks he is just gonna, who's been committed for this long, in-state kid is just taking all these ridiculous number of visits. It's just like, dude, if you want to leave, leave. You're not good enough to be doing all this. Sorry. Tennessee signed 2 4-star tight ends in their last class. I continue, even in 12 personnel off with no good receivers last year. What, Tennessee's Miles Kitselman had like 400 yards, maybe? Even in the most we have seen a Josh Heupel offense lean on the tight ends, it's very minimal. It's a very lesser important position on the offensive side of the ball. No, it is definitively the least important position on the offensive side of the ball in Josh Heupel's offense. Not even close. And the cut him stuff, that's, a little too far. I don't actually think they should do that, but it's just take it or leave it. I don't really care. I don't really care. If he wants to go to Tennessee, great. If I'm Tennessee, I'm certainly not upping my offer at all to this kid. It's just, if you want to come here, great. If not, go somewhere else. Stop taking visits. Stop the nonsense. I mean, I'd be so sick of it.
Wow. I didn't think this was going to have to do with Carson Sneed. I will say part of it is I do think Carson's a good player, and I think Carson would be, can I say that he's kind of a hybrid to me, because I think he plays tackle too at his school.
Also
right
plays
now.
Incredibly small private school football.
Hold on. So does Jesse Perry, and Jesse Perry is going to be a swing guard maybe for Tennessee. And let's just get him on campus and see how he handles things. And your point about getting 2 4-stars in the last class and Deshaun Brame and Jack Van Dorselaer is an important one. I think they really need Cole Harrison to be a bridge guy and come on strong this year as the Miles Kitselman replacement next year, because you don't want to go in super young, because one of those guys might redshirt. I have a hard time believing with how much is in front of Brame and Van Dorselaer that they don't end up at least one of those guys don't end up redshirting.
Agree. If
Ethan Davis stays healthy all year and Kitselman comes back as we expect him to early on. I will say, the thing that Tennessee is in a tough bind with Carson Sneed is like Moose Ledwig, the only other name that really popped up at tight end for them this spring, committed to Michigan in May. So there's just no one, we're in a dead period here for the next 2 months, and things will pick back up late fall. But I just don't want Tennessee to be in a spot where, now that they are way more of a 12 personnel type team, and I think they are putting more emphasis clearly on the tight end position and winning that way, that you just can't have a Derek Dooley no tight end class.
I think you can. Let's not compare one position, a tight end, to a Derek Dooley no offensive lineman, 5 starters. That's a terrible comparison.
It's in the family. You can't do it.
Portal. There's also this thing called the transfer portal. I don't know if you've heard of it. You can
so
easily get by without taking a tight end in the class. So easily.
You don't know if Brame and Van Dorselaer are locked in after this year. You don't know what Cole Harris. Everything's a year-to-year sport, so you have to keep stacking bodies and plan for the worst.
But but the year-to-year sport aspect, if you think Carson Sneed's coming in and contributing as a true freshman, I got news for you, buddy.
No, not as a true freshman, but you need... they're going to need a transfer tight end no matter what anyway after this season. You have to have a transfer.
You can't say it's year to year and then act like not getting a prep tight end is a big deal. That's my thing. You can't have it both ways.
Also, he said Heupel compared him to that really good Mizzou tight end from years ago when Heupel was there. Alberto.
Yes, the super long last name.
Yes.
Crazy long last name.
He was a freshman All-American. Was in the NFL, obviously, but clearly Heupel and Ablin see something in him and want to keep him in the class and everything else. So I don't know. They've mostly hit there. Tennessee's done a good job identifying and developing tight end. I think they're Miles Kitselman was a huge win for them in the evaluation department. I think they maximized. They got every last ounce out of Jacob Boren as a tight end. I think they utilized Princeton Fant in a really unique, interesting way. He's still in the NFL. So I think Heupel and Ablin do a good job of identifying tight ends who can help them, even if they're 3 stars, 4 stars, whoever. I think they do a really good job of identifying. When we have some questions about how they're building the roster on the offense in some ways, Ablin, I think, has been a solid addition, and I think he's done pretty well. And I just think he needs to hold on to Sneed here. I just put him in the room, and I just want to see what happens. I think Carson Sneed could be a good player for Tennessee down the line.
Yeah, and look, when I'm being completely legit,
I want willing blockers in Tennessee, basically, more than anything. Because Alec Ablin, former offensive lineman at Mizzou, they asked their guys to block. Part of the reason that Ethan Davis has not been more of a factor, I think, to this point, is he hasn't been a willing blocker. So for me, Carson Sneed having that background where he's playing some tackle, I think he's a good fit. I think Carson Sneed would be good in this offense.
Yeah, and again, when I'm being more objective about it and not just doing a little bit of a shtick. Like, yeah, sure, you want him, you want to keep him, obviously, but it's just not that big a deal. You were making it out to be like they're in a lot of trouble if they can't keep him. I don't think that's true.
I meant they're in a lot of
found
trouble
the
for
entire thing
2026.
very off-putting. I found the entire thing very off-putting from a low 4-star tight end.
How's the rest of the show?
All due respect to Carson if he's listening.
How was the rest of the show for you today? Any more off-putting comments?
Entire thing.
Okay.
No, I mean, when I was listening, I thought the baseball talk was good. Recapping the College World Series, I thought. I texted Caleb notes. I don't think he brought it up. Ryan Galaney was a kid from Wofford. He was
Ryan Galaney. That's the one I could not think
of. Actually, Galani, I think is how you pronounce it. I think I learned that it was actually Galani like a year after, like last offseason cycle. I'm pretty sure it's when I learned that.
Tennessee tradition. Santi not telling anyone it's actually Vescovy for years down the line. Mandy Marin, we're just all not calling him his correct last name. It's just it's a Tennessee tradition.
Yeah, it is. So no, I mean the show was good. I enjoyed the parts I was listening. I did do, and I got brought back in. They pulled me back in, but when you went to break and you were like, and when we come back, it'll be Tennessee football recruiting. I hit the Jerry Seinfeld. I'm out. I'm out.
There's nobody who hates off-season Tennessee football talk quite like Ryan Schumpert. He hates it because he knows it's going to dominate his life for like 5 months straight. He wants no part of it. Ryan is and I could talk Tennessee football and Tennessee recruiting every day and never get tired of it. But Ryan, it's just, the man wants to do nothing more. He is so excited for this dead period over the next 2 months. But yeah,
I can actually I can do it more so now, especially like football when we're talking about next year's team. I'm completely cool doing it now now that baseball season's over. It's the middle of basketball season that it gives me issues. Acting like anything that happens at spring practice actually matters from like our standpoint. Obviously, the actual stuff on the field matters some. That's the stuff that's exhausting.
Well, you mentioned the baseball talk, and I wanted to get your perspective, and we'll talk about it more on Fox Sports Knoxville Fan Run Radio tomorrow in studio, Ryan Schumpert. But as a prelude here, and this is something we kicked off the show, and I think we're on the same page here about why it's so important that Tennessee added Henry Ford to this class. Is just he's obviously the number one transfer portal addition and transfer portal target, but there's not another big fish out there right now, and the portal closes here in a week and a half, and Tennessee has a lot of year 2 talent that you and I both like and think several guys will break out and have really good years for them, but they still need some juice. They still need that Billy Amick, Andrew Fisher in the middle of the lineup that they get out of the portal to bridge the gap and to actually put you over the hump where you could see if he is a star, plus some of these guys break out in year 2, and you're like, okay, I could see 1 through 6 being really, really good and having one of the best offenses in college baseball again. But Ford has to get on campus. Like, I don't think there's been a more important player to get on campus in terms of like what your ceiling is going to be. I think Tennessee's floor is very safe under Vitello, but I do think their ceiling is really constrained to Henry Ford making it to campus because there's not a replacement if he doesn't make it in. The replacement is a freshman. The replacement is someone who doesn't get drafted where they want to go and they're on campus, because this is a young group, and like whether it's the Cal kid, whoever, they don't have the upside that Ford does, and there's no one else in the portal that has his level of upside at coming down the pike here for Tennessee. They've got to get him to campus. Like I think if you want to win a national title next year, Henry Ford has to be on campus.
Yeah, I think when you're talking about it in that context, I completely agree. I think Reggie Crawford's the only one that would say is even close.
Yeah.
Just because he had pop in his bat that 23 team missed, and then obviously you know what he's doing professionally on the mound too. He was just an immensely talented player. I think is definitely even above Henry Ford, the most talented of those guys that didn't or were draft risk, I guess, that they added from the transfer portal. But no, I'm with you. I mean, we'll see. It's still another week at the portal open. Maybe somebody does hop in that would be that caliber of player, but obviously at that point, there's no guarantee you're going to get him either. So I completely agree. I think it's, and to make a very specific analogy that most of these listeners aren't going to get, it kind of feels almost like the Cubs to me in this situation where the Cubs offense these past 2 years have had a lot of really nice pieces, but they just lack star power in the middle. And I think Kyle Tucker this year has kind of allowed a lot of other guys to just be themselves. And that's led to the offense being really good. People aren't having to do more than they have to. It adds an extra level of depth too, or just from like a 1 to 9 standpoint. And I think that's what like Henry Ford would be for Tennessee. There's a lot of pieces that I like already that Tennessee has in the fold. And, the guys coming back, the talented freshman class, I do think Levi Clark is a guy that could be a star. But you feel a lot better when he is one of 2 really good power bats in the middle of the lineup, and you already have someone that is more proven, and it's not all the pressure on Levi Clark to be that guy. Because if Henry Ford doesn't make it to campus and nobody else emerges, you kind of feel like Levi Clark has to be that guy, like 100%. And the offense is just not going to have the juice to, again, the context of the conversation, to win the national championship. The offense isn't going to have that juice.
You're looking at 2023 in 2026 if you don't get Ford on campus, I think. Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure I'm ready to go that far in June, but it's certainly possible. It's certainly possible, and I think to your specific point, you are missing that star bat that people really fear. Jared Dickey was a little bit of that, but didn't have as much power. Christian Moore was that by the postseason, but wasn't that for a large part of the year. So yeah, I think that's relatively fair. Yeah. Where does he play though? Let's operate on the assumption that Ford is on campus. Where do you expect him to play? And who does he affect the most?
I think right field would be my guess, just because that's where he's mostly played. Virginia, corner outfield for sure. Look, I don't think there's, and I think we're going to get into this a lot anytime Tennessee gets a transfer portal commit. And it goes into who does it affect the most conversation. I don't think there's one person, because there is so much versatility in the guys that we would pencil in to who could start for Tennessee next year right now. So much versatility. I think so from that standpoint, I don't think it's just like, it hurts one guy, because most guys can play multiple spots. I would maybe say Tyler Myatt, the Walter State transfer, just from the standpoint of, I think Chris Newstrom probably ends up in the outfield. And if Henry Ford's in right field, those are probably 2 corner outfielders. And I don't think Myatt is going to play in center, but he can play a little bit of second base. Certainly he's a designated hitter, and is what he did at Walter State last year. So it's not like it just kills him and you can't see the path for him anymore. But he's just maybe one because he's a little bit more limited on, positional defensive ability and positional value there.
That's fair. What is DJ Newman? Is he a pitcher? Is he going to do both? Is that just that, like, kind of to your point of just like, you're just going to have a bunch of guys who we'll see what injuries look like. We'll see what, who they add here and who makes it in from the draft, who doesn't. I mean, what is he? What do you think Tennessee, I guess, sees him as?
I think he's probably both. Just because, look, we were texting about this earlier with the house settlement and the 34-player roster limit. We'll see if it ends up being there this year with some of the kind of holdover stuff where grandfathered in rule. But just long term, like, two-way guys are going to become way more valuable. It is not coincidental that Tennessee is recruiting 2 two-way players when they haven't had a legit one since Drew Gilbert, and by Drew Gilbert's sophomore year, he didn't pitch anymore. So I think probably doing both. I couldn't find like a Bowling Green printout of like a game notes type situation that said the breakdown of positions he played. Over 2 years, I probably clicked on 15 box scores, and if it was designated hitter every single time if he wasn't pitching. He's listed as an outfielder, so I guess capable of playing that, but it feels like more designated hitter is the likely option there. And I think that would make a lot more sense for him too if he isn't a weekend starter. If he's a bullpen arm, it allows him to, warm up in the bullpen, stuff like that. I think you can work around that maybe a little bit easier.
Also, this is a dumb question. Can he play and pitch in the ball? Like, how does that work? If he's in the game, he can't come out of the bullpen, right? How would that work?
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
So how does that work? Like, end of the inning, he just runs to the bullpen and just warms up like he's playing right field, and then they move him to the bullpen, like they can make that call? Or does he have to DH in the start of that game?
No, I'm pretty sure he can be playing in the field. You lose your DH spot if he's playing in the field and goes into pitch. You lose your DH spot the rest of the game.
Interesting.
But no, you can. I think that's another reason why him being a DH would be more valuable in a situation, because he comes into pitch, he's already a DH.
Yeah. That's interesting. I mean, when you look at the 2 Bowling Green kids now, I know a lot of Tennessee fans are curious about the 2 of them, but who do you think stands to make a bigger impact in 26? Because I know a lot of guys are talking to Eric and company last week. They're pretty intrigued by Garrett Wright in 26. But from your vantage point, is there a chance that Newman is more important for Tennessee to add from Bowling Green?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a chance. To me, Garrett Wright feels more of a sure thing of just what that he's going to contribute. I mean, there's a lot of question marks around DJ Newman that not like not question marks in the bad way like we oftentimes say when we're talking about a roster or a player, but just more from like how does it work, how does he fit, what are they going to ask him to do. But yeah, I think Newman's ceiling is probably higher just because of the two-way value and the fact that he has been really, really effective, granted in the MAC, but he's been a really, really effective pitcher in the MAC, and he's also shown a good bit of power behind or at the plate too. So I think from that aspect, the ceiling's higher for Newman. But to me, I think I would probably have these guys as like some version of 2 and 4 in my power ranking Tennessee's portal signees or additions to date behind Henry Ford. I think they're probably some version of 2, 3, and 4 with Clay Edmondson in there too.
Interesting. Who's next in the boat potentially? Ryan Schumpert. Who did Tennessee fans need to be locked in on? Is the Cal kid close to making a decision?
Yeah, I mean, I think just from the standpoint that he's made his way through a couple more visits now, you would think so. I mean, you would think Landon Mack's kind of the same thing in the same case where he's gone on most of his visits. So I would think it'd be one of those two guys would be the next to pop. I don't know if it's going to be Tennessee. I don't have any sort of inside information there. But just from a timeline standpoint, I think those two would make sense. The Blaine Brown kid from Rice who visited, I believe, on Friday. Maybe that was Thursday, but late last week.
He was before Newman, right? I remember the order of. I think he was before Newman.
Yes, I believe he would have been Thursday and Newman Friday. I think. I don't know. It all runs together, but I know he was going to go see Georgia and Oklahoma too. So I didn't know the exact timeline. I imagine he's at least been on one of those visits, but feels like maybe a little bit more time for him. So, and obviously he could have had another visit too, but I would think one of those two guys.
And he's another two-way guy, folks. Like he's someone who pitched and hit in the field.
A lot less experience pitching. He threw like 4 innings last year for Rice. One of them he started against Tennessee in that game. Yeah, did not go well. So he's a much less proven thing on the mound than Newman, but Tennessee likes him as a possible arm that can help them out of the bullpen too.
I like it. Final thing. This is something at random, but is the Oak Ridge kid going to make it in, or do you think he's going to be more likely over or under 50%? The Oak Ridge standout makes it in for Tennessee next year.
I'll say over. Okay. He does feel like one of the more borderline ones, but I'll say over.
And then Cruz Longcraft, he posted another tweet or something like his. It feels like he's leaning towards because he didn't compete in something. What did he not do that seemed to signal that he might be leaning more towards coming to campus? Do you know what I'm talking about? Was it a combine or something?
I think it was the draft combine, but I don't know how much I truly glean into that.
Okay,
we'll see. I think he's obviously considering coming to Tennessee, but I don't know. That would be a hefty and significant pull.
Interesting. Baseball season review. Ryan, Hunter Ensley, center fielder. It's finally over for Hunter. Longtime great ball. The guy will be a legend around Knoxville for as long as he wants to keep coming back. I think he's someone we see keep coming back and we see around years from now. And I think there are obviously some Zakai Ziegler comparisons to his long-term impact at Tennessee and how much he loved Tennessee and winning a title here and so many iconic plays and a leader, just a natural leader is probably the best comparison to him and Zakai. It's just he was a natural leader for Tennessee baseball, and so just a lot of change, a lot of turnover. And Hunter Ensley was one of the constants for Tennessee baseball. But his final year, how would you say he fared his final year with the Vols? What did he get better at in his final season? And where were you surprised that he kind of struggled in that final year?
He kind of had the inverse of his season in 24, where 24 he was kind of just meh at the plate for the vast majority of the season, and then the Florida series, which was maybe the third to last SEC series, I can't remember super specifically, third or maybe second to last even, he got hot in that Game 3 win, I believe on a Saturday night maybe even, and from there he was just unbelievable. I think his season was almost the opposite, where through the Vanderbilt series, he was fantastic at the plate. He was really one of the few constants in an offense that was pretty inconsistent for good stretches. And then just that final series of regular season against Arkansas he just wasn't quite as effective at the plate. It was kind of like in 24 before that stretch where it wasn't like he was terrible. He got looped in to Dalton Bargo and Reese Chapman just from a standpoint those guys were the outfielders. They were 3, 4, 6 in the lineup, and they weren't giving Tennessee a ton of production. He was definitively more productive than both those guys, like by a good bit. It wasn't like he wasn't giving Tennessee anything, but he definitely didn't. He definitely dropped off. So I think if anything, maybe there's that. But I don't know. I tend to think that's more just sometimes how baseball goes, and that's where college baseball, the season being so much shorter, it's magnified if that happens at the wrong time, or if it just happens for a slightly more prolonged stretch, more than one weekend. Defensively, he was still really good. You can maybe say the home run power didn't quite stay the same as it did in 24, even when he was playing well this season, but it wasn't like he didn't have any of it. So it was not I think it was largely kind of what we expected from Hunter Ensley, or at least the positive version of what it would look like for Hunter Ensley is kind of what it did look like.
Yeah, and I think what was so weird is he was leading Tennessee in average for the majority of the season. He was right up there, 360, close to 400 for a portion of SEC play. And it just stunk that he hit a cold spell at the very end, like the last image for a lot of ball fans. They were just really frustrated with him at the plate. And it just stinks because he was really good this year. And like you said, the thing that I thought in our preview series, I thought the power, because he got a little bit more power every year at Tennessee when you look at his home run numbers. And I think Tennessee kind of needed him to make one final jump there. But it just never really came. Like Hunter, that's just not the kind of player he was. Like he was just not going to hit dingers, but he was also super clutch with 2 outs and had a great year by all accounts. But it was just kind of unfortunate that he hit a really rough patch at the worst possible time for Tennessee.
Yeah, no doubt. I do love in the standard of Tennessee baseball, power hittings to the point where double-digit home runs doesn't hit dingers.
Yeah, but it didn't feel like. What was his? How many dingers did he hit from like the start of SEC play on?
Oh, I can find the SEC specific stats here. Let's see. He hit 6. He hit 6 of his 10 in SEC play. So he made him count. I don't think he hit any in the postseason. To your point, unless I'm forgetting one. Did he? No, that was Dean Curley who hit one in the first game.
He had less home runs than he did in 24. Like he took a step back there.
Yeah, for sure. Which it's kind of to the point of the power wasn't quite what it was. Because again, I'd like to see the ratio of how many of those 12 home runs were from that Florida series on.
True.
It feels like it was probably 6 of them too. So you felt like, I guess that's kind of the point I was trying to make. He was largely that guy, and if you was like, all right, if he's going to be that guy again, you would have thought the home run numbers would have been a little higher. It was more just with average and doubles where he was doing most of his damage.
Yeah. He's gonna be weird not seeing him in center field. And Tennessee, what's funny is they could use him one more year. Like there's just that kind of uncertainty with 3 new outfielders. It's like, man, I would love to have Hunter Ensley back for one more year. But good luck to Hunter and great ball career. Ryan, the most intriguing official visitor this weekend for the Vols for you was who? Who are you still thinking about? And you're like, man, Tennessee lands him, or Tennessee's really in on this guy. That's interesting to me.
Yeah, I think there's 2. One, I'm blanking on his name. The edge rusher from Huntsville is committed to Auburn, like Ezekiel or something.
Harris.
Hezekiah Harris. I think him from kind of picking up where we left off last week. Tristan Givens going to Texas A&M. I think he's an intriguing one, just from an edge rusher standpoint. Certainly Auburn's recruiting class is not in the best of shape right now. I don't know if you saw the thread today. My brother sent it to me, and I didn't really dive in, but he was filling me in on the details. Thread on the on-three board at Auburn. Hugh Freeze has logged, I think it was 10 golf rounds in his official handicap in the first 20 days of June. So he's on a golfing every other day kick, which respect. Heck yeah. Probably isn't the greatest of looks when you have 6 players committed and you're going into kind of a make or break year. So I don't know. Maybe Tennessee can make the bad times continue to roll on for Auburn football.
Well, he also said he only needs to make a bowl game. He's like, he understood that he only needs to make a bowl game. He understands there's pressure for him to make a bowl game, which is amazing. Just lower the standard, or it's like year 3 at Auburn. Like I understand, folks, that I have to make a bowl game this year.
That's exactly right.
That's all we're expecting, Hugh Freeze.
Which also gambling on Jackson Arnold. I mean, look, I could see it working, but that's also quite the gamble in a make or break year. But him, and then I'd say Craig Tutt. I like him as an in-state guy, playing big-time football at Oakland. Tennessee has not recruited safety well. He's a guy that I would like to see them land that they hosted this past weekend.
I can't take 2 back-to-back 4-star safeties not end up at Tennessee at the very last minute and go into an SEC rival. Because, I mean, Shady Hayward was committed long-term to Tennessee, and he's a late flip to Florida, and he was a big-time 4-star talent. And then this year, Craig Tutt, teammate DeJuan Morris is already here. And like you said, Oakland's a power in 6A football. And, man, he'd be good to get in the boat here. And he'd be the first 4-star ad. I mean, it's kind of complicated because I would still Boo Carter and Caleb Beasley, I think, kind of count for this.
I don't really think Caleb Beasley does.
I mean, he's going to be a starting safety potentially this year.
Potentially doing a lot of work there at the end.
I mean, it's him or Edith
he was
Farouk.
he was fully recruited as a corner, and he played corner his freshman year.
Yeah, but they cross train. Like Willie and Tim cross train. Like Christian Charles played every position for Tennessee. Like that's I don't know. I think it's hard to the only person who wasn't cross training was Will Brooks. Will Brooks was never working at cornerback the last couple of years.
Nor was Andre Turrentine or Wesley Walker.
Sure.
Or Jacoby Thomas.
I guess so. Yeah, I guess some, yeah.
Jordan Thomas. There's really not a ton of cross-training between corner and safety. There's a ton of it star, safety, and some corner star. I feel like that's kind of the bridge. But
they also have Joao Combe, who's a teammate of Braden Roos. I think he's like 6'2". He seemed pretty high on Tennessee. So it feels like they'll land one of the two, whether it's Tutt or Combe, who plays at Kell. A good program in Marietta, Georgia, Ryan Schumpert. And anytime you have an opportunity to land 2 Longhorns, you got to do it. You got to do it, sir. But I don't know.
They got a couple. Anderson County, the Longhorns, they got a couple kids Tennessee's looking at.
Well, hold on. Anderson County's not the Longhorns, sir.
That's tough. That's tough. I thought they were the Longhorns.
They're the Mavericks.
Anderson County. The Mavericks.
They do have a Longhorn logo, though. It's a swerve.
Longhorn logo and Texas sport nickname. You know, it's a tough blow, but you can see how I got there, listeners.
I see it. I also just respect a lot of programs who are shaking things up. Too many Tigers, like do things different. Like shout out to Carnes. You don't have enough Beavers. Like
Carnes is a great one.
Yeah, be Beavers. Be the Bears. We need more variety here. We need more variety in the nickname department. Like Carter Hornets. Good stuff. Way to go. Like we need more of that. We need more variety. Not too many Bulldogs. Yeah. Well, I would say of that list, Hezekiah Harris is interesting because now that Gibbons is off the board, Joel Wyatt, we'll see what he ends up doing. He said he's down to Tennessee and Vanderbilt today. Depends on if he's going to be an edge, it seems like, at Tennessee, but he's a high 4-star, top 100 player. I'm not worried that Tennessee is going to land one, but I just am kind of curious who it is because Zach Gross is in the class. He's a 4-star in-state guy, but I don't know. It seems like he's someone who might be able to move around and might not end up as an edge at Tennessee, and we'll see where he ultimately goes. It's kind of like Isaiah Campbell, where I'm not sure. Maybe Isaiah Campbell stays in the interior, who was a late addition 5-star in this last class, but is he a strong side defensive end? I don't know. Rodney Garner moves guys around. We'll see on that front, but I am kind of curious who it is. Like it's probably the most up in the air edge has been for Tennessee in the last couple of cycles. Because last year you knew it was Marion Dye, and that was a big one. And obviously James Pierce, Joshua Josephs. You go through the list. Jordan Ross, 5-star, like that was the big name. This year it's just kind of odd that it could be several different guys. So maybe it's Harris. He's a top 100 player, and that'd be a good ad, like you talked about with Auburn. They're kind of in a weird summer spot. So maybe Hezekiah Harris flips. I think his brother plays at Auburn though, so we'll see if he's able to. Tennessee's able to close there, but yeah, I think that would be.
I was going to say that's when you keep the stove hot on, even if he sticks with Auburn for the time being.
Well, I think I've listened to his OV conversation with Austin and Ryan. I think he said he's planning like to go to some games this fall, I want to say, and it's like a December decision. So if Hezekiah Harris is Tennessee's Leo, the big Leo edition this cycle, then Vol fans might have to wait a while. It seems like.
It could be a little bit of a Isaiah Campbell situation, to your point.
Yes.
Where it got down to Tennessee, North Carolina, and North Carolina didn't have a head coach, so it's kind of Tennessee by default there. Could be one of those.
Yeah, Hugh Freeze might be out, and it's just like, yeah, that's true. That very much might be the case here. Final thing, Ryan Schumpert. I'll throw this in there because you don't want to do one more football thing. I'll save this for tomorrow on the podcast, on the radio show. I'll save this, Ryan Schumpert. Final thing. Should Liam Doyle have won the Golden Spikes Award in your estimation with the season he had? You were the Liam Doyle stan. You called it. You called your shot. Liam Doyle was an all-time call by you before the year. Do you think he should have been the Golden Spikes Award winner?
No, I don't think so. And even for my take, as strong as it looks, I think if you're going to look at the regular season, probably was deserving. I think Cade Anderson was the best pitcher in the SEC when it was all said and done. Maybe that's a little bit of recency bias in what he did in his last start, but man, that guy was really good. But just as a whole, it's like, what an unbelievably weak year for the Golden Spikes. There were 5 players last year that I think would have, maybe 4, because the other finalist, I'm blanking on his name, the pitcher, he might not have won. It's tough for pitchers to win. There were 4 guys last year that would have won in runaway fashion this year. Runaway fashion. So I think that part's, kind of the brutal part if you're Christian Morris specifically, who wasn't even a finalist last year, which he should have been a finalist, but he wasn't a finalist. And he was way better than Wahila Aloy, or the low dice kid at Florida State. So, yeah, I mean, there's probably a case to be made for Liam Doyle, but I don't necessarily feel like he really should have won or got cheated or anything like that.
Great year, though, man. Liam Doyle and Andrew Fisher, we were excited about both, but I think both, even with their high expectations, exceeded expectations. Like Andrew Fisher, especially.
Yep.
Unbelievable year. What was that stat that Wilkerson put out with him and Todd Helton today?
I did not see it. Let me go look.
He tied or did something that hasn't been done since Todd Helton at Tennessee, and I forgot what it was. But he's in elite company. John Wilkerson
led the SEC in home runs.
Yeah, so no one has done that at Tennessee since Todd Helton. Andrew Fisher, because you didn't make it back to Omaha, is just going to be kind of. I don't want to say forgotten. That's too strong, but we thought he was just going to be dingers, strikeouts, and just like some version of Billy Amick, or maybe even a step down from Billy Amick a year ago.
Yeah.
He was so much better than Billy Amick, and he was a guy who was an OBP master. Like, he was so good at always getting on base every single game this season is crazy town.
Yep.
Super reliable. He had to move to first base because of a preseason injury, and they needed him there. No Ozuna. He has to step up. He moves around the order a little bit, but he's all year long. He was your lone consistent guy in the lineup from the opening day to the end of college baseball. Andrew Fisher, Liam Doyle had a fantastic year. He is another one that kind of sucks that he kind of fizzled out at the end there too a little bit. But man, Andrew Fisher had an all-time great season at Tennessee, and I hope Tennessee fans remember his year, because it's actually kind of silly how dominant he was in every phase of the game.
I couldn't agree anymore. Like, you're dead on the nose. Like, so weirdly underrated. Honestly, I think he was every bit as good as Liam Doyle, to be honest. And that's no sort of knock on Liam Doyle. I was thinking about it as you were talking of the Tony Vitello era batters, hitters. Christian Morris is the only one I would definitively say was better than Andrew Fisher. I'd listen to Blake Burke. I'd listen to Trey Lipscomb. I guess I'd listen to Drew Gilbert. I really don't think I would.
I would listen to Trey Lipscomb.
As a pure batter.
Fisher was better than Lipscomb.
Yeah, I lean so too, but Lipscomb was really good.
Lipscomb was really good that year, but I don't know. I still got to go Fish there.
Yeah, again, I don't feel like some sort of strong disagreement to that or anything like that. Lipscomb, let's see, he hit 355 with 22 home runs, 19 doubles.
Did he have 22 dingers that year? Goodness gracious!
Yeah. But his he didn't walk at all. He had a 428 on base percentage, where Fisher's was up there right around 500.
Yeah, so more home runs, more walks. Fisher was better, man.
Yeah, I would like to see some of the power breakdowns in SEC play, but yeah, I mean I think probably 2 or 3 of the hitters, purely hitters, and Tennessee's or Tony Vitello's tenure, and he was not as great defensively, but I think you have to admire what you talked about, him stepping up, him moving positions. He didn't want to play first base. I doubt, go back a year, I doubt he would have gone to Tennessee if he knew he had to play first base. He wants to be a third baseman in professional baseball, but he didn't bat an eye. He knew that's what the team needed of him, and he stepped up and he did it without complaint. And he wasn't as good defensively as Blake Burke certainly was in 24. I mean, Burke was incredible. I think maybe year-over-year best development I've ever seen from a full-time starter, at least. But he was serviceable. He was solid. And I think I might have said this at some point. I don't think it was on here, but look, a lot of non-Tennessee people didn't like Liam Doyle, didn't like Andrew Fisher. I get it. A lot of people don't like transfer portal. I get it. Those two were, if you don't like the transfer portal and you don't like Tennessee baseball, those were two guys that were really, really easy to pick on. But Andrew Fisher did that. Incredibly good teammate move, incredibly selfless move. And Liam Doyle, I mean, I don't have to go into detail about everything that he did for the team and putting the team above himself. So those are two guys I think are great examples of good teammates and true competitors who Tennessee got in the portal.
I love it. Ryan Schumpert, what can the good folks check out from you and the team over at Rocky Top Insider this week?
Yeah, it'll be a lot of Tennessee baseball offseason, tracking some stuff this evening on continue pitcher overhaul. Just going to be a completely new room next year. And then anything else that comes up, Tennessee football recruiting, Tennessee basketball recruiting, probably a little bit of just Tennessee football stuff in general. So we'll have you covered on all things Tennessee athletics over at RTI.
The bullpen's just guys who are not playing in the lineup 1 through 9 next year. It's just guys who run out from the dugout and they're like, all right, it's your turn. Go in there. Go warm up. Like it's just a cavalcade of guys. Ryan Combs has entered the portal, right?
What's that?
Combs is still back, right? He's in.
As of now, at least, yeah. I mean, I
don't Combs. Know. I'm not selling my Combs stock. Stay for one more year, Combs. Give it one more year.
Yeah, no, I'm with it. It's there's a handful of guys, but Anson Siebert.
Breedlove kind of hurt. Like of the group, Breedlove I think could have been a big help for Tennessee next year. If I had to, out of everyone so far, he's the one outside of Loy that I would have loved to have kept for one more year.
Yeah, I would agree. I think he's clearly the number 2, with the Sharman being the number 3. I also wouldn't shut the book on Breedlove signing professionally, too. I think that's a possibility.
Okay. Ryan Schumpert, always a pleasure. I'll see you in 24 hours.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas Podcast. Hell yeah.